So what was your relationship with your dad like as a child? What do you remember about that?
My dad was always real active, in my life. We were sports people, and my dad, I can remember when I was small, I just, out of the blue, I guess I got the idea from my classmates. I said, Dad, they're having a baseball tryout tonight. I want to go try out. And I went out there, and I was horrible. I couldn't even hold a glove, couldn't even catch a ball, had no hope of ever catching a ball or even hitting one. And I gave it my best shot. And then on the way home, I remember telling my dad, I said, Dad, I really like baseball. And Dad said, you really like it? And I said, yeah, I love it. And he said, tell you what, if you're that serious about it, how about I help you, learn how to catch the ball? Well, my dad worked with me a whole year. We would do drills. I'd have to catch so many grounders, catch so many pop flies, catch so many balls that he was a pitcher and I was a catcher. We had a tree farm. Trees were our outfielders and our basemen. And then we had a backstop. It was an old fold-up bed frame that we used as a backstop to keep us having to run the balls.
And then a homemade bed frame.
Homemade bed frame. And I'd take batting practice and do all that. We worked for a solid year. By the next year, not only did I make the team, but I actually made the all-star team and actually ended up pitching a shutout. Suffice it to say, that couldn't have never happened if my dad hadn't have taken the time to absolutely be, he inserted himself as a coach and actually coached me. And then he decided not only would he coach me, but next year he was the actual coach of the Little League baseball team that I was a part of. So.
Did sports interfere with more important things in your family ever, or how did y'all keep that balance?
Yeah, my dad, he saw how interested I was in athletics. As a matter of fact, I was small for my age at the time. I was a late bloomer, and Dad saw that, and he said, I tell you what, son, you're going to have to work out. And he said, I'm going to buy you a set of weights. So at 11 years old, he basically was the one that got me a set of weights. And we had Bob Hoffman. He had a training regime, and then he had supplements. And so my dad would actually work out with me, and we documented as we would get bigger. We'd measure our arms and our chest, and we'd document it. So he bought me a set of weights, and he said, son, if you're going to be successful in athletics, you got to be faster than the next person. You got to be stronger than the next person and quicker than the next person. He said, you're going to have to work out, So, I got addicted basically to working out at that point. And so he started me on that journey. We had we lived in a trailer growing up, and my dad had built an extra room on that trailer, and he actually built a basement to go with it to expand and have more room. And so I had my training facility, if you will, down in the basement. Well, we had an old oil furnace, and as back in the days, you would call an oil furnace truck, and they'd come out and fill your tank up. And then, that fuel would be what was used to supply the oil furnace in the trailer. Well, my dad was a self-starter. He didn't believe in calling somebody. He wanted to work on it himself. And we were having problems with that furnace. And it was during the wintertime. And my dad was home. We lived so far out, there was if your house caught fire, forget it. There's no fire truck going to show up. Had no fire department. So sure enough, my dad got to working on that oil furnace, and something happened, and the igniter, some way, a fuel line ruptured, and the fuel went everywhere, and then the fire was small, and then it started, and my dad was trying to put the fire out, and we didn't have insurance. So he's trying to put this fire out, and it got out of control. And I remember at the elementary school, actually, we lived about 2 miles from the elementary school where I went. I remember being outside on the playground and seeing smoke go up in the air from the playground I was playing on, and it was in the direction of our house. Little did I know that my dad was battling a full-blown blaze that was going to take our whole, going to take everything. I was in the 8th grade back then. It was going to actually destroy everything he'd built, And my dad, of course, he realized I'm not going to be able to put this fire out, So I'm just going to start carrying out everything I can carry out. And obviously, in a fire, the first thing you're going to go for is you're going to go for your pictures, So he went and got all of our family pictures he could get before, it got too bad. But the second thing he went and got was my weights, Actually went down into a basement, and it was on fire up above, And he knew those weights, he knew those weights had importance, to me. And the relationship he and I had was kind of built around athletics, And so, we didn't have the money to go buy a bunch of equipment, and he worked real hard, had extra money just to buy that set of weightlifting equipment. He went down in there and carried all that out, and they had it outside, we lost everything. And but my dad actually, when I saw that, I said, man, my dad really, risked his own life just to get, you might look at that today and think, man, what a crazy person. But my dad knew the importance of it, with respect to our relationship, and it was just a material thing, but I couldn't have got weights again, so
he ran into a burning house.
Yeah.
Into the basement of they could have fallen in.
Could have been bad
on him.
And so, that type of thing is what I grew up around, watching my dad basically lay down his priorities, his life, and his goals, to help his kids, be everything they could be in Christ,
And as a grown man now, that probably means you realize the significance of that.
Yeah,
more than you might have when you were in that grade.
I mean, obviously, I didn't know anything. A power team didn't even exist when I was growing up, You just don't know these small things, how God's going to use that. And years later, I'm on the power team and evangelizing and leading people to Christ. Well, at the time, what seemed insignificant, like it don't really matter. Let those things burn up. Little did I know that was going to be the thing that God used to help me, reach the lost. Because I sure can't sing. I tell people all the time I sing like a jailbird behind a few bars, can't find the key. Or I sing, my brother-in-law tells me, he said, Gary Keelan couldn't hold a note if it had a handle on it, So you don't want to hear me sing or play an instrument. So kind of my view was just use what God puts in you, your natural abilities, and use that to bring him glory.
That was one of those moments, I've talked about on the podcast where my dad stepped onto the stage that I keep in my heart. It's where we keep all of our heroes.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so your dad stepped onto that stage many times, but that's been 40 years ago now.
Wow.
I think since this happened to you.
Yeah.
If my math is right.
Yeah.
And I see you tearing up still today.
Yeah.
Just like I do every time I tell the story about the day my dad came out and ran a touchdown against me. And see, guys, it's those little things you do with your kids that have such an impact on us for life.
Yeah.
And my heart's broken for little guys that are growing up without that. They don't know how to experience that. So